Good afternoon, Brodie. Thanks for coming in to do the DRAS podcast with us.
No worries.
Appreciate the fact that you've given us your time to come in.
Always. After the amount of time collectively you guys have given me, I think it's the least I could do.
So I'll kick off with just to clarify exactly, so that anyone listening to it knows exactly who you are.
Yep.
So Brodie Healy.
Yeah.
And how old are you, Brodie?
22. Yeah.
Where did you grow up?
I grew up in the Barossa Valley, and then once I finished school, sort of moved to Adelaide to pursue more opportunities with both sport and working opportunities as well. Yeah.
You know, I understand that at the moment you live with your mum at Rosewater.
I was, yes, but recently since the tribunal, the SDA got approved for 1-to-1, so then I moved into my own property, which is pretty cool. Yeah.
So growing up in Newry, and I understand you went to Newry High School until year 12.
Yep.
How was that growing up in the country? And saying that Newry is country.
Yeah. I guess it's close enough to country. I didn't really know any different, to be honest with you. Obviously, since I moved, I then see the opportunities that I've had since being here, and you know, what would life be like had I been based in Adelaide from the get-go. I think my life might have panned out slightly differently. But you know, I guess we just sort of made do with what we had. You know, access to rehabilitation and things like that was pretty limited, so we did a lot of our own stuff from that side of things. But yeah, since moving to Adelaide, obviously having a lot more intervention with doctors and medical professionals to make sure that I'm, you know, getting the best out of my therapy.
So touching on that, you've been diagnosed with cerebral palsy.
Yeah. So I was diagnosed with cerebral palsy from birth, well, shortly after birth, and then I think it was around 15, 16, they actually changed my diagnosis from diaplegia to tetraplegia. So yeah, I went through, which I probably should have been diagnosed as tetraplegic from birth, or, you know, at the outset of my diagnosis, but yeah, just a few things kind of weren't picked up, and then I always sort of knew that I was, but yeah, until it was officially changed and things like that, it was about 15, 16 when I first started to look to drive, and obviously had to do functional capacity assessments for that, and then obviously that's when that permanently got changed. So yeah.
So cerebral palsy, for anyone that doesn't know, so it's a congenital disorder of movement, muscle tone, posture, if you like, and it's historically due to an abnormal brain development before birth.
Yeah, correct.
What's it been like for you with that diagnosis?
I guess it's all I've known. Obviously things have sort of changed over the years, like I've said, but I guess the fluctuating and changes has probably been the biggest thing, just kind of trying to get ahead of the curve and just making sure I'm doing everything I can to, you know, best address the situations that have presented themselves, and I guess that's kind of how we ended up here. You know, I originally entered the tribunal in pursuit of the molly suit, which is pretty much a state-of-the-art electro pulse suit, which for me completely changed everything.
Yep. And I'll come back to that.
Yeah,
the suit
absolutely.
Itself. So you went to year 12 at Newry High School.
Yep.
And at school, what I understand, you played football, basketball, cricket, and bocce.
Played everything I could really get my hands on. Yeah, absolutely. And then I guess growing up, there wasn't really a lot of opportunity to pursue rugby as much as what there is now. So that's kind of why I, you know, ended up playing the sports that I did. Like you mentioned bocce just a minute ago, that was kind of the local sport, I guess you could say, at the Barossa region. Like a few of us with CP sort of, you know, created our own sort of group, and really pursued bocce as the youth. But since moving to Adelaide, I've then really gotten into my rugby and pursued that.
So how did you first become involved in sport?
I first became involved in like a Paralympics pathways thing, similar to what your little athletics would be. we sort of had our own Paralympics pathways for those. So yeah, I think every fortnight we'd have like someone from Paralympics Australia come down to the Barossa and run us through different sports each term, and yeah, that's kind of how I first got involved, and then got referred to, you know, the bocce program and things like that. Yeah.
So you were a recipient of the Kick and Goal Scholarship for year 11 and 12 through the Barossa Foundation that provided financial support while you were at school.
Yeah.
What did that mean to you to receive the scholarship?
It was massive for me. Like, I definitely struggled with like my senior school, like obviously not being able to type very proficiently because of my tetraplegia. So it meant that I was able to fund the supports that weren't necessarily funded within the NDIS. So whether it was in school having someone for those, you know, tutoring sessions to be able to type things out for me, or actually physically paying for the talk to text software, and then actually physically purchasing a laptop to set the talk to text up on once I'd actually finished school, to make sure that I could move into sort of that after school education to pursue different things.
And one of the people that's behind that scholarship, John Hughes, is a winemaker.
Yeah.
What sort of influence did John have on your life?
Yeah, massive, like huge. Just that sort of sounding board growing up. You know, obviously Johnny having CP himself, had a huge influence just on, you know, not just with me, but with my parents as well. Just sort of normalising the symptoms within the CP and sort of being that connecting person, almost like what a coordinator would be like within today's current NDIS system. That's kind of how I would refer to Johnny growing up, you know, just having that someone there that kind of knows what you're going through to a certain extent. Obviously CP is very drastically different for everyone, but you know, they all sort of still have the same symptoms at certain points.
Was he an influence on your sporting career as well?
I think so. Like he definitely pursued bocce with me. Like he definitely made sure that I had, you know, access to all the things that I needed to in order to pursue that. And then he got me into CP soccer as well. So I used to get around on my walking frame as a kid. So I still had a little bit of leg function to be able to scoot around on that. And yeah, I was a huge soccer fan. So Johnny actually facilitated that when I was a kid. And he didn't really want me to be playing rugby, but that's kind of what I moved towards once I left school.
Right. So in 2019, you're a 17-year-old.
Yep.
And year 12 student at New York High School.
Yep.
And you captain the SA team in the Wheelchair Aussie Rules National competition. So you're not only the captain of the team, but you're the youngest player that's ever played in that team. I'm very fortunate enough to be involved with wheelchair footy from the outset. So I think the first national championships was in 2016. So I was lucky enough to captain SA to 4 national championships and be the youngest All-Australian ever. So it's pretty cool, I think. Yeah, and in 2019 you beat Victoria.
We did, yeah.
In the championships.
Yeah.
So in Wheelchair AFL, is it as much we hate Victoria as it is in the normal AFL?
Oh, I think it's more.
Is it?
Because you're in such close proximity. You know, you're not much room for error and lots of chair contact. So there tends to be, you know.
As far as captaining that and being the youngest, how do you rate that out of all your sporting achievements? Yeah,
I mean, it's definitely a big part of, you know, creating that name for myself, and it's something I'll remember for forever, really. But yeah, I guess the biggest thing as to why I sort of moved away from wheelchair footy was obviously the classification system didn't really align with my functional diagnosis, and then obviously got pursued to play wheelchair rugby, which is a sport played by tetraplegics and quadriplegics. So that kind of fitted, you know, within my functional diagnosis, but then also the goal since I've had as a kid, which was to play for my country in whatever sport it was. You know, I always thought it was going to be wheelchair basketball, but then obviously having a bit more of a prominent diagnosis and all of the things, it sort of then became wheelchair rugby, and yeah.
You're a Geelong supporter?
I am a Geelong supporter, yeah.
So not only you're a Geelong supporter, but you're happy to beat Victoria?
Yeah, it's a tough one, because, you know, I used to wear my Geelong jersey to training, But then, yeah, come nationals time, it was, you know, the SA kits on and yeah, business.
So as far as Aussie rules go,
Yep.
how is that played in a wheelchair?
So it's a game that's played on a basketball court, so it's actually based off, you know, the wheelchair basketballs and the wheelchair rugbies in a sense. So a handball's a kick, an underarm throw is a handball, a touch is a tackle, and then you've got your two defenders, so it's like zones. So if you ever watch like Auskick, you'll have your zones. So you have two defenders, two forwards, and a centre. Centres can go everywhere, but they can't score. Defenders can go into their defensive third and the centre third, and vice versa for the forwards. So that's kind of how it works. Yeah.
And then you move on to wheelchair rugby. Or you play wheelchair rugby pretty much at the same time.
Yeah, I was playing both sports at the same time at that point, which, you know, became a bit difficult, but yeah.
You were about 15 when you first played wheelchair rugby?
I was, and then sort of moved away because I didn't think there was much of an opportunity, particularly functionally then. I didn't know where I sat within the classification system. Obviously within Paralympic sports, the functional classification system plays a massive role. And yeah, I wasn't too sure where I sat with it, so then I moved to wheelchair basketball, whereas I knew wherever I went within wheelchair basketball I was going to be the lowest function player on court, whereas rugby's not really the case. So yeah, that's kind of why I moved away from wheelchair footy, then moved to basketball, and then moved to rugby from there. So yeah.
The wheelchair rugby is an intense contact team sport, and it's played in 8-minute quarters.
Yep. Yep.
And to be eligible to compete, athletes must have an impairment in at least 3 limbs.
Yep.
That's how the classification system works.
Yep.
So you first played when you were 15. So how does a kid from country South Australia who grows up with AFL move to rugby?
Yeah, it's a funny thing. It actually, like, it was always a goal of mine to end up playing wheelchair rugby. Even when I was a kid, obviously not knowing where I sat within the sport. But it came about initially because I, through like your school programs and that, you had to do work experience, you know, through like year 10 and 11, and I actually volunteered a fair bit of my time for the Disability Sports SA, DRAS, and then they got me involved from rugby from there. So yeah, that's kind of how it first came about. And yeah, I do think, and I do kick myself that, you know, if I had just stuck at it from a 15-year-old, geez, where would I be now? Because, you know, coming and going as I sort of please and not really committing myself up until, you know, maybe 2 years ago. You know, I really like to think that maybe I could have been in Paris this year or something like that. So
you've got basketball, football and rugby. Which one's your favourite to actually play?
To play, probably rugby, yeah, just because of the influence that I can have on the game. From a functional standpoint. So
we talked about people having an impact on your career, if you like.
Yep.
Jenny Cole, who's the CEO of Disability Sports Australia, what impact did she have on your career?
Oh, she was the one that actually told me to stick at rugby and you know, go after it. At the time, she bumped into me at basketball training, funnily enough, and she pulled me aside and she goes, "What the hell are you doing out here? You know, rugby's, you know, going to take off in SA and it's going to be a big thing and you should be at the forefront of that." And yeah, after that, she invited me to the 2019 National Championships in Sydney, where at the time we were kind of tossing up before COVID and all the things. I was actually going to go over there and do a bit of an internship with Disability Sports Australia, and then obviously COVID came along and unfortunately Jenny lost her job, so that kind of fell through because I was going to work alongside her. But yeah, from that time in Sydney, I then, you know, got talking to different coaches and all the things about, you know, the potential career path that I may have in wheelchair rugby, and went back home and said, "Oh, you know, this Paralympic dream can, you know, it's touchable." So yeah, that was kind of where I said, "No, I'm not playing footy. I'm not playing basketball. I'm going to play rugby."
So in 2021, you played for South Australia in the wheelchair rugby national championships on the Gold Coast.
Yeah, yeah.
So what was it like to represent your home state at that level?
Yeah, it was a pretty daunting experience for me. You know, obviously, you know, you have all these dreams as a kid, and then you go out there on a big stage and you go, "Oh, that's," you know, it's pretty crazy playing against your idols. You know, it's kind of like, you know, if you were to play against, Adam Gilchrist or someone like that. It's what it was like for me playing against Riley Batt and Andrew Edmondson, which for me were the people that growing up I'd watch on TV and all the things, and watch all their interviews, and being able to play against them, I was pretty starstruck. I'd just kind of sit back and watch and then go, oh shit, I'm actually playing in this game, kind of thing. So
that must have been quite surreal to actually be on the court with these guys.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I haven't really had a lot of time to play with them. It's more been playing against them. So for me, it's kind of just reminding myself, no, I'm actually, I'm here to compete and got to go and give it to them. So yeah.
I'll go back to May 2021, and you were quoted as saying that wheelchair rugby has given you something to wake up to each morning and aspire to be great at.
Yeah.
So is sport a driver for you?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it was. It was kind of my reasoning after I got functionally diagnosed as a tetraplegic. I was like, well, I don't really know what the future holds, but I know that regardless of what I do and where I end up functionally, there's always going to be a sport out there for me to play. And, that dream of playing for the Australian whatever sport was still very much alive. So, it's always the way of, like, no matter how much pain I'm in, or, how bad my spasms are or whatever, it's just like, well, I'm sure someone else out there is in just as much pain and they're doing twice as much as what I am. So, I can just get out of bed and go and train and do whatever I need to do in order to make that goal of going to the Paralympics a reality.
You talked about your game plan on the court as to play as best you can and make the most of teammates around you.
Yeah.
But sport's also given you off the court, makes you feel supported.
Definitely. It's like that network, and I guess part of that I didn't really have growing up back home. It was just kind of like, you were left your own devices and the internet, and we all know that reading stuff off the internet's not always the best case for you. So, yeah, it's just so much, resources off the court, because everything you're going through, someone in that sort of network has gone through before. So, not just on the court, but off the court for sure. Whether it be, how you set up your next wheelchair or whatever it is. How do you, peel an onion with such little hand function, just small stuff like that you can't necessarily just Google. So, yeah.
And those things are something that everybody else doesn't think about.
Yeah, 100%. It's not something that's, widely spoken about and posted about and in the news and all the things. Obviously, you're not going to speak about peeling an onion, but even small things about, well, how do I open a door, or how do I even have kids? Like, I don't really know outside of that network where I would have gone to have those sorts of conversations. So, yeah, I think that's a big part of why I now push it to the youth around why sport's so important. Yeah.
The Paralympics. So what's your goals and dreams there?
I'm not too sure. Obviously, within the AAT tribunal, we just got funding for the recreational sports side of things. So whether it be a rugby chair, which is probably the main goal at this point, getting a rugby chair, but there's also an opportunity within hand cycling as well. And yeah, it just comes down to, I'm up for reclassification from a functional standpoint this year. So, and I feel as though a few things have changed functionally for me over the last 2 years or so. So depending on how that goes, will then sort of dictate where I sit from a wheelchair design point, and then also, from almost a sports point as well. Big part of the reason why I haven't been so successful in wheelchair rugby in the past is, I'm not very heavy. A lot of the boys I play against are quite heavy. So, and it's kind of, a lot of the conversations I've had around, oh, you'd be good as a hand cyclist being so light, and that's how I used to get around the neighbourhood, and I never really thought about being competitive in that sport. So I've got a few decisions to make in the back end of the year as to what it looks like. Obviously, I don't think I can walk away from rugby, metaphorically speaking, but if an opportunity presents itself, then I guess I have to wait and see, because obviously the ultimate goal is to get to the Paralympics in whatever capacity that might be.
Yep. What's it like as far as funding in that space for Paralympic athletes compared to able-bodied athletes?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't imagine that Cole Chalmers is scratching to get to the Olympics.
No, I mean, it's a business at the end of the day, right? You've got to put bums in seats. You've got to sell tickets. You've got to have social media. You've got to brand yourself, and you've got to make financially viable that way. I'm pretty sure if Kyle Chalmers was swimming at the same time I was hand cycling, everyone's going to go watch Kyle. So, it's a business at the end of the day, and the biggest thing I've noticed within sort of that Paralympic system, it's the grassroots of how do you get there. You know, it's all good once you're there because a lot of the stuff is funded, but you know, it's an expensive hobby till you get there. You know, I spend a lot of my finances trying to, you know, travel and all the things, and you know, fortunately enough, you know, most of your chair maintenance is covered through your NDIS, but it's also getting the sponsors to ensure that you can travel to those tournaments so you can get seen and you know, get noticed so you can hopefully one day get paid to play.
The suit, the Expulse Molly suit.
Yeah.
What does it do? What is it?
What does it do? It does everything. It's magic. But no, to put it simply, it's so basically because of my injury, I have like an incomplete sort of electricity, so the signals don't necessarily get through to where they need to be, so it in hand then creates the spasticity because obviously the body reacts to that. So basically it helps complete the signals, which will then reduce the spasticity. So for me, functionally, it can be the difference from transferring independently versus not transferring independently. So it's a pretty massive thing for me, yeah.
Is it new technology? Because the reason that the NDIS originally rejected you to have such a suit was that they deemed that it was there was limited clinical evidence in relation to it.
Yeah, I guess they kind of, well, their original knockback was, it could be a placebo effect. We don't really believe that such piece of technology can have such an influence. And you know, that's when I got myself a GoPro and just started filming all sorts of my daily life of, you know, what it was before versus after a molly suit session. So so
what's the difference? What sort of things could you do afterwards?
Lots. So transferring, I mentioned. Even just being able to sit up in the chair, you know, was easier. Being able to even lift my arms above my head. I quite often describe, you know, my tricep function as almost like a rubber band without the molly suit, based on the spasticity that I do have. So with the molly suit, it pretty well, not eliminated it, but it definitely allowed me to do things more freely. Although the muscles, it definitely highlighted the muscle weakness because the spasticity wasn't there. It just allowed me to be free. And unfortunately, the biggest thing for me, obviously not, the NDIS don't acknowledge, which is nerve pain. They don't consider that a functional consideration. But for me, that was probably my biggest thing, just being pain-free and not having to take all these drugs, which would then lead to other things. You know, the ability to go to the bathroom without using a catheter, you know, super important, and it's something that, you know, I didn't think I'd be able to do, but with the molly suit, it's
giving you a lot more freedom.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's just the peace of mind too, to know what every day is going to look like from a pain point of view. So I was able to commit to, you know, working more and doing more for myself and not having such a reliance on a support system just to be able to be there in case things go to shit. So yeah, that's probably the biggest thing.
So what's next as far as sport goes? What's coming up?
Yeah, I guess we'll wait and see outside of this season, but this season I'll be playing for the University of Queensland in the National League competition, which kicks off on Thursday. And then from there I'll come back home and play for SA in the national competition, which is in June this year, which we're pretty excited to have it on home soil. Now.
Moving to Queensland?
I'll be fly out. So yeah, just fly over for competitions where they need me and then fly back, yeah.
As far as flying goes, how do you find that? As
Yeah.
far as there's a lot of complaints about airlines with people travelling with wheelchairs and seating and things like that. How have you found it?
It's pretty good. I mean, they definitely make a lot of assumptions within your functional capacity, but they can't consider everyone and everything. But I think just being upfront and just letting people know, and no one's perfect. Even people that work in the industry still don't know what they're doing. So how can an airline guest, So yeah, I guess just be the educator, for the next person. Don't be frustrated at the fact that they might not know. I mean, it has its moments of, oh, will you need the same service when we arrive at our destination? It's like, it's not a magic plane, but yeah, they basically, they go off a script at the end of the day, because, you can't ask a set of questions for each diagnosis, can you? So they do as best as they can. So yeah, just be open and honest and upfront with those individuals. I think, they're doing what they can. It's come a long way, trust me.
They have?
Yeah, it's come a long way.
If you could give advice to somebody with disability that was listening to it, what would be the one thing that you would say? Everything you're going through, someone's gone through before. So ask questions. Don't settle for saying that this is what it's going to be. There is ways to improve. Your body's good at adapting. So just be as inquisitive as you possibly can be, and just never settle for less. Always push the perception of what it means to be disabled. Yeah, I think that's the one thing I'd say. Just never settle for less. Other than sport and the Paralympics, what do you see as your future?
I'm in the process of building a business. So I mentioned pushing perceptions just a second ago. That's the name of my company. So hopefully I'm hoping to be eventually listed within the curriculum as a gratitude and diversity program for whether it be reception right through to year 12. And basically just starting the conversation around disability so that no one is left to just make the assumptions, hopefully, so then one day we can just be an integrated society. Yeah.
Thanks very much.
No worries.
Thanks a lot for your time today. Thanks for coming in.
Anytime.
Thanks.
Thank you.